Good morning. The October 16th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called in order. As we continue to meet in this hybrid fashion, we ask all folks who are with us today, joining us in person, to ensure that all electronic devices are turned off or at a minimum placed on silence so you do not disrupt today's proceedings. For those of you who are joining us online, we will ask if you have the opportunity to speak and present in front of the board that you state your name, the organization that you are calling in from, and then begin to speak loudly and clearly with your testimony. At this time, I'll ask our amazing clerk, Ms. Celeste Amato, for any corrections, additions, or noted abstentions to today's agenda. Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. We have the following items to note in the opening statement this morning. We have one walk-on. That item is SB 24-14147, Fire Relocation Rental Assistance Grant Agreement for $0. And the action for that item reads as follows. The board's requested to approve a fire relocation rental assistance grant agreement for $0, and the background explanation is as follows. This is a grant agreement for 3 months of rental assistance for the victims of the underground fire at Brown's Arcade at 322 North Charles Street. This program will be executed by the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success Community Action Partnership Centers. The agreement is based on the rental assistance grant agreement for the eviction prevention program previously approved by the board on May 19th, 2021. We have the following correction to note this morning. SB 24-13813, Bureau of Procurement. This is an unauthorized procurement for the destruction of outdated election documents. This item is being moved back to the routine agenda at the request of the comptroller. We have no deferrals to note this morning. We do have 2 items that were withdrawn from the agenda. Those were SB 24-11766, City Council Employee Travel Request for Mark Conway for $3,808.19. This was withdrawn at the request of the department. And SB 24-13806, Department of General Services, bid rejection for GS 23819, City Hall roof replacement and dome restoration for $0. This item was withdrawn at the request of the agency. We have one protest. We have a protest to note this morning, a number of related to the same transaction. The item is SB 24-13642, Bureau of Procurement Award RFQ 000549 for managing, operating, and maintaining telecommunication systems for the Baltimore Convention Center for $0. There was a protest received, 2 protests received from Smart City and Versatech. A statement of opposition was received from Synergistic IT Solutions, LLC, and a statement of support was received from Cox Business Hospitality Network. We have the following items to note on the non-routine agenda this morning. SB 24-13925, Department of Audit, single audit together with reports of independent public accountants for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023 for $0. SB 24-13110, Bureau of Procurement, unauthorized procurement, Baltimore City Public Schools for $42,064.75. SB 24-13363, Bureau of Procurement, unauthorized procurement, Baltimore City Public School System for $70,816.86. SB 24-13643, Bureau of Procurement, unauthorized procurement for Merit Athletic Club memberships for $65,400. And SB 24-13642, Bureau of Procurement, Award RFQ 000549, Manage, Operate, and Maintain Telecommunication Systems for the Baltimore Convention Center for $0. We have the following abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Mayor Brandon M. Scott is abstaining on the following items. SB 24-12346, Mayoralty Subaward Agreement, Johns Hopkins University, and SB 24-13666, Monsey First Amendment to Agreement with Johns Hopkins Hospital Incorporated. The Honorable President Nick Mosby has no abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Comptroller Bill Henry is abstaining on all travel requests and travel reimbursements. Deputy City Solicitor Stephen Salisbury has no abstentions to note this morning, and the Director of Public Works, Khalil Zaid, has the following abstentions to note: SB 24-13534, DPW Travel Request and Reimbursement, and SB 24-13868, DPW Travel Request. We also have the following no votes to record into the minutes this morning. For the Honorable President Nick Mosby, he's voting no on the following routine agenda items: SB 24-13366, Grant Agreement, Make Space Incorporated, SB 24-13145, Grant Agreement, Division Street Homes LLC, SB 24-13417, First Amendment to Agreement, United Way of Central Maryland, Inc., SB 24-13561, Mutual Termination Agreement, Art Space Projects, Inc., SB 24-13663, Monsi, First Amendment to Agreement, Johns Hopkins Hospital, Inc., SB 24-13678, Second Amendment to Non-Construction Consultant Agreement with Daily Computers, Inc. for audiovisual services, SB 24-13554, MOU and Right of Entry Agreement with Forest Park Senior Center, Inc., SB 24-13378, First Amendment, SCON 003247, Electric Vehicles, SB 24-13609, Second Amendment to Grant Agreement with Project Place, Inc., SB 24-13359, Design Development Agreement for Baltimore City Multi-Agency Coordinator Center, SB 24-13861, Fixed Pricing Policy Disposition, September 2024, Part 2, SB 24-13320, Fixed Pricing Policy Disposition, September 2024. That concludes the no votes. I do want to go back and also note that the mayor's chief of staff, who is sitting in for him today, has no abstentions to note. That is for Chief of Staff Marvin James, no abstentions to note. And Mr. President, that concludes our opening statement this morning.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. At this time, I will ask for a motion to approve and adopt the opening statement.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those nay, please say nay. All those who are no, please say nay. The ayes have it. This opening statement has now been adopted. I now would like to direct the board's attention to a memorandum from my office dated October the 15th, 2024. Identify matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by our amazing clerk. I will entertain a motion at this time to approve the items contained on the routine agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda has now been adopted. As we go on to business, our first order of the day on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 3. It's SB 24-13925, Department of Audits. This request is to note the receipt of single audit together with reports of independent public accountants for fiscal year ending in 2030-2023. On behalf of the Audit Department, we have Mike.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, honorable board members. My name is Josh Pash. I'm the city auditor. And I'll wait a second till the presentation comes up.
Yep.
Thank you. I am here to present the single audit report for the year ended 2023, June 30, 2023. Next slide. So I will be presenting a high-level objective of the audit, talking about our sampling methodology, the key parties involved, and then an overview of the audit process. And then I will hand it over to SB & Company, our partners in the audit, for the rest of the presentation. So kind of give a summary to everyone. The audit objective of the single audit, we're doing an audit of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and we are looking for compliance with the federal requirements. So when the federal government gives us those grants, they have a lot of requirements attached to those. The purpose of the audit is to audit that compliance. And then just to make a note that we're focusing on expenditures, not an award amount. So if we get a grant award of $5 million, but we've only spent $1 million during that year, the audit is concerned with the $1 million, not the $5 million. Next slide, please. our sampling methodology, how we selected grants for testing. So it's not the same grants being tested every year. We basically looked at grants with expenditures during the fiscal year of greater than $3 million that have not been audited in the last 3 years. So basically, every grant that expends more than $3 million has to be audited within a 3-year round. And then we also audit all grants that have a reported material weakness in the prior year. And then we have required coverage of expenditures of 40%. So if those first 2 categories don't get us grants that expended 40% of the total expended, then we will select additional grants to make up that difference. Next. So the key parties. So Department of Finance prepares this, the CFA, the Schedule of Expenditures, and City Auditor and SB and Company do co-audit. We basically divide up the areas to audit and work in partnership there. And then once that audit is completed, a single audit report is put together, attached to the CFA, and that is what we're submitting to the board today. Next slide, please. Again, just a high-level overview is broken down into 3 phases. Planning, which the City Auditor and SB and Company partner with planning, scoping, procedures, stuff like that. And then we partner with the field work, which is the testing of different areas. And then for the reporting, SB and Company compiles the report, and that is put together with Department of Finance and presented. I will turn over to SB and Company, but before I do that, I'll see if any questions.
At this time, are there any questions for the auditor from the board? Hearing and seeing none.
So SB and Company will present now the rest of the.
Good morning, everyone. President Mosby and other members of the board. My name is Tiana Nguyen. I serve as one of the audit partners at SB and Company, who performs the independent public audit for the city of Baltimore. Waiting for the slides to come up, but I'll go ahead and get started, picking up on slide 3. Our scope of services, so SB and Companies, our scope of services do include the overall audit for the city of Baltimore. And that was for the period ended June 30, 2023. Included in that is the Uniform Grant Guidance Audit, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail. We also assist with the preparation of the data collection form. That is the accumulation of all of the results of the single audit, and that gets submitted into the federal government's kind of repository, or what's known as the clearinghouse, to track all federal awards spent. We also issue a report on the internal controls over financial reporting for the same period. If I move along to slide 5, similar to what Josh has covered, we follow what's known as a risk-based audit approach in order to navigate throughout the audits. That starts with planning and understanding the organization, understanding the types of federal dollars, and just the nature of those programs in order to design a process that ensures that we are looking at the appropriate risks. One of the things that does differ with the Uniform Grant Guidance Audit compared to the financial statement audit is that many of the areas of focus are dictated to us from uniform guidance and included in the circular that is published by the federal government each year. If we go to slide 6, SB and Company uses a 5-area interrelated model known as the COSO model to go and assess the overall internal control environment. So that's looking at, the tone at the top, the nature of the processes and procedures that are in place, how the organization assesses risk and responds to risk, makes changes when changes are needed. And the area that most people are familiar with is that section in the middle. That's the control activities. So that's where we spend time looking at how are certain transactions initiated, how are they authorized, and ultimately the recordation of transactions within the books and records, as well as the reporting of those transactions and the accuracy and completeness of those transactions back to the federal government in the case with the uniform guidance. On slide 7, you'll see the results of our audit in high-level form. We issued an unmodified opinion on the overall comprehensive annual report. That's the highest level of opinion that we can render under the standards. You will note that the opinion on the Uniform Grant Guidance Audit, or the single audit, was a modified opinion. And I'll talk a little bit about the instances that led to the modification of that report. We did not discover any instances of fraud for fiscal year 2023 as it related to the federal awards. Do want to give, thank you to management and all the folks in operations. There are 10 major programs that we looked at this year. So you can imagine the number of people that we had to spend time with, the number of documents that had to be provided. So we do want to thank everyone for allowing us to get through the audit. There were some material weaknesses and significant deficiencies identified, and as a result, we have some recommendations for the improvement for the overall internal control environment and procedures related to the handling of federal funds. If we go to page 9, here's a summary of the independent accountant's work. Here, you'll see, again, mention that the overall opinion on the financial statements was unmodified. There were material weaknesses and significant deficiencies that were identified and required to be reported. When you go down and look at the federal awards themselves, there's a combination of some programs that received a qualified opinion and some that were unmodified. At the bottom here, so kind of starting with the housing opportunities for persons with AIDS down to the HIV prevention activities, you'll see those are the 5 programs that received that modified or qualified opinion during the year. The programs that have the asterisks means that those programs were not deemed major in the year presented. So it could be they didn't have the spend of $3 million or they were not deemed high risk for that period. Comparing fiscal year 23, as I mentioned, there were 10 major federal programs. When you look at fiscal year 22, just based on your spending and risk assessment, there were actually 14 major programs. So you can see that the number of programs can change from year to year, depending on how you've spent your funds and the risk that's been associated to those programs. On slide 10, you'll see the listing of the programs that were deemed major for the year. As Josh mentioned, our required coverage was 40%. So the testing of the programs that met that determination set forth by uniform guidance did give us a 51% coverage. So you'll see we tested $158 million of the total $310 million of federal awards that was expended for the city for fiscal year 2023. If you go to page 11, this is I know it's a very high-level summary. There is a full, almost 200-page report that details all of the results for the audit, but you'll see here the listing of the findings. We presented to you earlier this year the findings related to the overall financial statement audit, so those are included here as well. And then you'll see the list. There were 14 material weaknesses that were identified, along with 6 significant deficiencies. I would like to point out, when you look at the types of findings, there are themes or trends that you can see. So for the material weaknesses, many of them related to cash management and the monitoring of the city's subrecipients. And then with many of the significant deficiencies are due to the inability to reconcile certain reports that were provided to your federal funders back to the books and records of the city. Page 12 attempts to detail some of those findings. So again, understanding that the criteria in accordance with uniform guidance with that CFR is that non-federal entities must establish and maintain effective internal control over the federal awards that provides a reasonable assurance that the non-federal entity is managing those federal awards in compliance with statutes, regulations, and other laws and conditions. So when you look at cash management, again, the inability to reconcile drawdown requests to amounts that were within the federal database. Eligibility, ensuring that there's proper documentation for participants and that they meet the eligibility as outlined within the grant agreements themselves. For subrecipient monitoring, having documentation that risk assessments were performed, including the appropriate information within the subaward agreements themselves. Having evidence that the subrecipients were monitored during the year, and being able to provide evidence that the subrecipients were not disbarred from receiving federal dollars. And then with reporting, kind of goes hand in hand with cash management oftentimes. And so again, ensuring that you're able to reconcile the information in the books and records of the city back to what is being reported to the funders. If I go to page 13, the next couple of pages I really thought would just give some background in terms of some of the terminology that's used in assessing the internal control environment. So providing the definition of a deficiency and hopefully allowing you to see the differences between the magnitudes between a significant deficiency and a material weakness, whereby material weakness being the strongest, if you will. And that is just a combination of deficiencies and significant deficiencies. Such that there's a possibility that misstatements or non-compliance would go undetected or would not be prevented or corrected on a timely basis. On slide 14, just a little bit of background around uniform guidance. It's really a way to streamline the audit process basically what the federal government allows is for you to have one auditor to come in and kind of on that rotational basis, that risk profile basis, do all of the audits kind of at one time instead of having each of the federal departments coming in and doing their own audit of the dollars that they provided to you. And with the overall goal being to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse of federal dollars and to kind of increase the outcomes related to federal funding. Page 15 really is just to leave you kind of with a summary of some of the key compliance areas that are focused on during the audit. So looking at the allowable costs, understanding that they were incurred in the appropriate period, cash management, so the timeliness of the use of federal dollars, matching whether, oftentimes you receive federal awards and there's either state or local or other dollars that the city has to also contribute to those programs. Reporting and of course subrecipient monitoring. Our overall recommendation for improvement is really just to make sure that the city continues to work on its policies and procedures, one that properly identifies the federal awards and having an ability to properly and accurately report those awards within your schedule of federal awards. We also have a recommendation that individuals that are responsible for administering federal programs, that they're receiving the adequate training around grants administration, including the specific requirements. So whether it's reporting or eligibility, cash management, monitoring of your subs, et cetera. The circular, the uniform guidance, it changes annually, especially in this climate with the COVID dollars and just other relief funding that's been made available. And so oftentimes, each year, there's information that can be learned in order to improve the various departments to make sure that they are keeping up with those so that they are properly administering the grants, and then therefore the audit evidence is made available to test those programs. I'll stop there and see if there are any questions, comments, or concerns.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Were there any material improvements from previous single audits that we saw that we were able to capture here? And just any highlighted like holes and gaps that were consistent with those previous audits?
Yep. So the one I would say, timekeeping. So if I were to probably go back to 2020 and 21, there were deficiencies around the ability to track time and to prove time and effort of individuals who charge time to grants, and also the period of availability, which is ensuring that costs incurred were incurred within the period of the grant. So those are the two, without me going back, that I would say have been significant improvements, at least over the last 3 periods.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Anyone else with any questions, concerns? No?
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to coming back to present the results for 2024.
We look forward to that as well. At this time, there's no motion needed. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry, Mr. CFO, would you like to come up and?
Yes,
talk about all the work that you're doing. Ms. CFO, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Michael Moxton. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the City of Baltimore. I just want to take a moment to thank SPN Company for their professionalism and partnership, as well as the auditor and his team for their very collaborative approach in putting this report together. So as we look back on 2023, I wanted to take a moment to take stock. Several years ago, City of Baltimore lacked the integrated systems that are needed to fully implement modern internal accounting standards. The work that's been done over the last 3+ years to modernize both our systems and the way we do business has been bringing us closer each day towards best financial practices. This audit lays out the work that still remains to be done, but it's also an important acknowledgement of the path behind us and the progress to date. And that work's been done by some people who were here throughout the pandemic and put the world on their shoulders, like Deputy Director Ioana Moisides, as well as some who've joined us more recently, like Chief of Accounting and Payroll Victoria Raby, as well as our brand new Grants Director Ashley Meyer, who are going to make the team and the progress stronger than ever going forward. I would like to briefly pass it to the team to go over our presentation and response to the audit.
Thank you, Director Moxton. Ioana Moisides, Deputy Director of Finance. Good morning, not afternoon yet, to President Mosby and honorable members of the board. We do have a presentation. I believe Ms. Johnson is presenting for us. Hopefully
There we go.
Great. So I did want to reference very briefly the expectations that this board should have and that our city should have in regards to our ACFR and single audit timeline and the process improvement. We didn't talk a lot about timeline, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in and raise it and just note that fiscal '24 was our second fiscal year in Workday in a new system, new chart of accounts, et cetera. And it's actually our first full year. And so we're seeing some natural time efficiencies from the second year in terms of staff understanding their roles, understanding the new system, developing some additional reporting since Workday Go Live. All of our conversion activity is complete. Those are all positive things that then impact our ability to be timely. We've also partnered with Workday with other tools. We've implemented Workiva, which is intended to remove manual processes, gives us the ability to change from staff kind of collating data and then inputting it into manual spreadsheets and moving it around to pulling data directly from the system into templates so that they can use to prepare the financial reporting. And so with that, our fiscal '24 targets, our ACFR, our goal is to submit that to the state February 28th of 2025, with the single audit to be submitted to the Federal Clearinghouse by March 31st, 2025.
So you'll see us back a lot sooner.
Yes.
This is everyone's favorite.
That is
so
the goal.
You
And-
won't miss us long.
And so very briefly, to move to the slide, reforms to Grants Management Office, just speaking in a little more detail after the director so succinctly summarized. So coordination. Right? In fiscal '23, due to the leadership of the administration, the city administrator, and Department of Finance, we established a grants management committee, citywide committee, monthly meetings coordinated with Office of Performance and Innovation. And that's really the opportunity for all of those grant-funded agencies to track implementation of corrective actions, standardize processes, and have some difficult discussions. Staffing, as noted by the director, we looked at and planned for an expanded role of the Grants Management Office, so moving from a more decentralized model to a centralized oversight model. And as part of that, of course, bringing in Ashley Meyer at the end of August into the new grants director position. I think it's been about 6 weeks, and one of those was serving on the jury. So she across the street. So she is hard at work, and we expect to gather the Citywide Grants Management Committee to take additional steps on that. And then you did hear recommendations from the auditors about establishing policies and procedures, and then recommendations that staff responsible for grants management receive additional training. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over so that Chief Raby can speak about a few detail points that I think are important.
Good morning. So we don't intend to cover every observation from the single audit, but there were 3 key areas that we thought it was beneficial to share feedback on, what progress is underway, what steps are and improvements. So the first was and is a historical challenge with the preparation of the CFA. So the CFA is the backbone, the schedule of expenditure of federal awards for the single audit process. Pre-Workday, that was an entirely manual. None of our legacy systems collected effectively the grant information. FY23 made great strides. Now we have systems in place where all of that information is maintained within Workday, within the grant awards, all of those details. So we did have some bumps and some growths there. So some human input challenges that have resulted in the finding that we still see in FY23. But what we've done in response to that is change kind of the approval process and add additional eyes. So we really believe that in FY24 we'll be able to fully in most areas rely on Workday. There will still be some implementation areas. We're moving forward on being able to get by FY25 100% of the CFA, almost like a click button report. So we wanted to just share that there is light at the end of the tunnel and modified controls in place to produce the results that meet federal guidelines. The other areas that we thought, and Shantae, if you could please move to the next slide, are on the topic of subrecipient monitoring. So as shared, there have been challenges across various federal programs with monitoring our subrecipients. So that is where the City of Baltimore has received federal dollars and then in agreements with subrecipients then passed those funds along. With that passing of the funds, there are very specific requirements, and the goals of both the Bureau of Accounting and Payroll Services as well as GMO is to really get standardization so that we are using the tools that are available within our system that we didn't have before to be able to not just perform the procedures that we're supposed to, but permanently record them. So no one's going back to their file cabinets and trying to find files. It is all within one system, one place, and reviewed. So we are seeing that progress as well. The last topic that we wanted on a high level to discuss is some of the findings that come about from cash management and reporting. And this last area we would kind of highlight as and Shantae will progress this presentation. Thank you. Is that we're really focused because we have the tools in place. We are focused on training and adoption. So what we have been doing since May of this year is we gather as a grants community across the city with between 60 to 90 participants biweekly. And in those calls, we cover and basically reinforce the tools that are available so that we can ensure that we are meeting the standards of our sponsors who are providing us these funds. With that, there is robust financial reporting available, and there are processes in place that should ensure compliance. So it's very key that when we follow the correct procedures, we should get the correct results. So that is something that if you wanted to get into the weeds, we kind of just at a high level, if people were curious, what is the process? How do you ensure that you have proper reporting? We've kind of outlined this here, but we do want to be respectful of time and see if there are any questions to just some of this high level plans and feedback.
Thank you so much. At this time, are there any questions from members of the board? Ms. Comptroller, the floor is yours.
I was going to just comment that you may have set a record for management response in ratio to length of audit presentation.
Good or bad, we'll see.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you so much for the detailed presentation. Thank you again for our external auditors as well as for you, Mr. Auditor. With that, the board will note this report. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 103, SB 2413110, Bureau of Procurement on behalf of Monty. This request is to approve an unauthorized procurement with Baltimore City Public Schools. On behalf of the city, we have
Adam Manny, your Chief Procurement Officer. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, honorable board members. If it's okay, I would like to group SB 2413110 and 13363 together. It is the same thing to the same entities for all intents and purposes.
Yes, the board will take your presentation together. We will vote them separately, though.
Thank you. What this is that Muncie, during, from May 26th of 2023 through September 30th of 2023, used the Baltimore City School System's Transportation and Police Department to help with the mayor's curfew implementation, and this is providing transportation services and security services at the youth service centers. Due to the timing, we never had an agreement in place, be it a contract or an MOU. The services were rendered for both, and we're coming before the board asking for permission to pay the services. And both Muncie and BOP have had several long discussions with the recommendation as we go into next year, knowing that these services would be needed, that we would work with the solicitor's office to draft an MOU between the city and the school system to ensure that these services can come in and we have an easy payment method to get them taken care of. I know the director's here if you have any other question.
Mr. CPO, can you just put the dollar amount for both?
Sure.
on
For
record?
the transportation services, that dollar value is, I'm sorry, I have them backwards here. One is $42,065, thank you. The transportation is $42,064.75, and for the police services, $70,816.86.
Thank you so much. Madam Muncy?
Stephanie Mavronis, Muncie Director. I think the chief covered it, but if there's any questions, happy to answer them. We're committed to an improved process moving forward and really appreciate the partnership of city schools being a strong collaborator with us in these youth engagement efforts. We couldn't have done it without them, and we're looking forward to making sure the process is even smoother next year.
Thank you, Director Malvonis. At this time, are there any questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for SB 2413110.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on non-routine agenda is SB 2413363, Bureau of Procurement on behalf of Muncie. The request is to approve an unauthorized procurement with Baltimore City Public Schools. On behalf of the city, we have,
Sorry, Adam Manny, your Chief Procurement Officer.
and we appreciate the testimony that you provided regarding this in the last item. At this time, are there any questions or concerns for the administration? Hearing and seeing none, the board will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on page 102, SB 2413643, Bureau of Procurement on behalf of the Sheriff's Office. This request is to approve unauthorized procurement with Merit Athletic Clubs. On behalf of the city, we have,
Adam Manny, your Chief Procurement Officer. Again, good morning, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, congratulations, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, everybody here, Mr. Mayor, it's a joke,
I
please.
just heard Marvin's heart rate double.
All the way up. What we have here is we're requesting from the board permission to pay $65,400 to the Merit Athletic Clubs. The Merit Athletic Clubs provide a service to the Baltimore City Sheriff's Office and for their deputies for a health and wellness program. There was a purchase order and an agreement in place that ended on June 30th, 2024. Unfortunately, we would not have time to get through for a new agreement and a new purchase order in place, and the Merit Clubs have still provided these services, which are essential to the Sheriff's Office. We're requesting permission to pay for the calendar year, which would be from July 1st through June 30th of 2025. The Sheriff's Office is working to bring a new contract before the board for the next year to continue these services. So it was just, we didn't have the time to get everything through in time. The services were continued. It's a valuable service for the sheriff, and we're requesting permission to pay for it.
thank you. Any questions from Ms. Comptroller?
Just what was the reason for the delay in submitting a requisition?
I don't know that offhand, sir. I'd have to review it and get
Okay,
back to you.
you could just send that.
Yes,
to
sir.
us. All right, thank you.
Any additional questions or concerns?
I promise to vote for this as long as the sheriffs don't clog up the equipment in there.
Oh, yeah. You can't- Any other questions? Mr. Sheriff, you have anything to add?
I just want to say that this is, we have a budget line item for this, so this is coming out of a budgeted thing already. We are at the historic courthouse, and unlike any other law enforcement agencies, we don't have a gym or a health and wellness program prior to this. And so we chose this because it offers nutrition services, it's walkable from the courthouse, and it allows the sheriffs to live a healthier lifestyle that we're encouraging. It also reduces injury and accidents, we believe, and it just increases the general health and welfare. It's also a recruitment and retention benefit that we have in place in order to try to bring people. So I appreciate you, and we would appreciate your vote. And I can answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Mr. Comptroller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, you just made me think of the fact that it's close to the main courthouse complex down here.
Correct.
But do the sheriffs rotate through the other courthouses such that if you're out in Northwest or at East Side or something like that, and your normal workday just takes you there and then home, then they're coming down to Merritt, or is there an option for them?
So there are a lot of clubs all over the place, and that's one of the reasons that we chose this, is that they can, because a lot of the deputies are doing this on their off time, right? One of the things that passed part of the Police Accountability and Reform Act was they're doing physical fitness testing for all law enforcement in the state now, because they recognize that a law enforcement officer who's in shape can control people better and uses less force usually. It doesn't go to weapons if they can control people physically. And also for injuries, and they also are making better decisions when they're healthier.
So these memberships are good at any of the
clubs,
Okay,
yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none at this time, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thank you so much. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on pages 140 and 141, SB 2413642, Department of Procurements. This request is to approve an award of a revenue agreement to Hospitality Network LLC. A protest has been received by Robert DeShiel Esquire as well as Veritech. A statement of opposition as well as a statement of support has also been received. On behalf of procurement, we have
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, honorable board members. Adam Manning, your Chief Procurement Officer. So would you like me to start, or would you like Mr. DeShields to go?
No, we always allow the administration to go first.
Thank you. So an RFP was issued to manage and operate and maintain telecommunication systems for the Baltimore Convention Center. On 4/18, we had a pre-proposal conference that we walked through. We went through a variety of items. On 4/19, there were question and answers that were done. On 5/15, we asked for technical proposals. We received 3 proposals from ShowNets LLC, Cox Business, and Smart City Networks. At the end of May and the 31st, we did technical evaluations, including oral presentations. We had received no inkling of any issues whatsoever coming from any of the respondents. We went forward, we negotiated with all 3. As an RFP, this is a best value, not so costs, and this is a revenue-generating contract are a factor, but they are not the primary factors. And we've come before this board asking you to make an award. There is a protest from Smart Cities with Mr. DeShields. They are protesting on 4 different items. The city feels that we have done everything, and I can go into details on those. I'll let Mr. DeShields speak. But the city has done everything. No decisions here were made were arbitrary or capricious. The city followed its policies and procedures to the letter, and we're asking for the recommendation of the award to Cox.
Well, Mr. CPO, just from a time efficiency perspective, could you just go into the 4?
Yes, sir.
And state the city's response to them, and that way when Mr. DeShields comes up, he can provide his testimony.
Be happy to.
Dig into it further.
In the protest, the first item is that there was not a requirement for a minority business participation. The city goes through a process working with our business partners at SMB&D. And just for historical sake, this is a system, their system, B2G, is open to anybody. It's a public-facing system. So the city goes in and we put in telecommunications. And the system spits out everybody who's registered in their system who can do telecommunications and the subsets that they have registered for. For telecommunications management, there are nobody registered. Additionally, with this contract, the proposer will be providing 3 to 4 people on site. So there really isn't an ability to segment this out. So we went through this. We requested SMB&D for a waiver. They did their review. They looked at everything, and a waiver was granted. So that was the first one, saying is that we should have had small minority business participation. Well, it wasn't. The second answer is that Cox bid was non-responsive, that they said there was a questionable bid security. A bid bond was received. We do have the bond. I know that we sent a copy of the bond to the mayor's, to the comptroller's office. When the bids were open, the bond was missed. It was just an administrative mistake, but the bond was there and submitted in time. Another issue that they had is they're claiming that Cox is not a responsible party because they failed to disclose litigation. Again, the city is 100% responsible for determining who is responsible and who is not the proposers. If there's a disagreement, which is what there is now, it then becomes this board's responsibility to make that determination. The failure to disclose the litigation history, it was a different company than the one that was cited in the protest letter. Cox has multiple companies. The litigation was on Cox's cable, not Cox's hospitality. So it's a completely separate company. Therefore, we don't consider it valid, and we move forward. The last but not least is that the protest is that Cox made a conditional or qualified offer, and again, that is not the case. In the bid package, the RFP, the proposal package, there is a section, I can go, if you'd like me to read chapter and verse, I can find it, that allows our business partners to say, these are items that we want to talk about. Cox responded, and they said, we propose to negotiate these several items. It wasn't conditional. Conditionals if then. If you don't do this, then we're not going to do that. What they said is, here are several items. Some of our terms and conditions aren't relevant to what's going on, and we propose to discuss these as we come up with a final agreement that works for everybody. So since it's not conditional and it wasn't a qualified offer saying you had to do this or we're not going to do anything, again, it was done correctly, and the city went through and we negotiated, which is the whole purpose of the RFP process, is to allow the city to negotiate so we can get the best value for the citizens. And those are the high-level views of everything, and I can go into greater detail, or if Mr. DeShields wishes to.
No, that's good. Just real quick before Mr. DeShields comes up, just about the first point. What was the advantage or the reasoning, again, of the minority waiver?
There were no companies that had registered for telecommunications management, and the total number of people on site will be 3 to 4, if I'm correct. I know the director of the convention center's here. He can go into a little more detail. So there was really no way to segment this out as we're going through this, and SMB&D did the review, and as they went through, they reviewed it, and they looked at everything. They looked at the proposals, the responses, and made the decision that, no, this couldn't be, and the waiver was granted.
So what we're saying is there's no minority or women-owned companies in this area that can do management, operation, and maintenance of telecom systems?
There are none that are registered within our systems that are certified by the city to do that. I don't have it with me. I can pull it up. I actually sent last night at the request of your chief of staff the information that showed all of that. I did not print it out. I wasn't that far for it.
As a recovering electrical engineer who specializes in telecom management, I find that very, very hard to believe, but.
It's what's in the system, sir. The city doesn't assign these categories. So when you understand, when as a business partner and you go in and you're registering to do business with the city, you as the business partner go through both the Workday system and the SMB&D B2G system. You choose the NICS codes of what your services that you can provide. The city doesn't assign it to you.
Gotcha. Well,
So-
are there multiple NICS codes
Yes.
inside of telecom management?
Yes, there is.
What
So
is this NIC code? How does this NIC code differ from all the other NICS codes?
It's this business partner chooses the NICS codes. When we look at it, we just put in telecommunications, and it pulls up every certified business within the city on SMB&D that has telecommunications, and then when you drill down, it shows you what they say they can do based upon those NICS codes. Nobody had telecommunications management. I don't know if Director Lundy's here, he can get more into the process. I don't see him, but we use it then, and that's how SMB&D then makes the determinations of what can be done and what can't be.
So again, is there several NICS codes or is
Yes,
there
sir.
just one? So
There are
are there
several.
other NICS codes for telecom management? Because
Not-
maybe that's where.
I don't know, sir, to
We
tell you.
don't know that.
I don't
Okay.
know the NICS codes with it. I do know that there are several within telecommunications.
Oh, Director Lundy's on WebEx. Director Lundy, do you have anything to add to the discussion before we hear from the protester? We can't hear you yet, Director Lundy. We can see you, but we can't hear you. Are you attempting to speak? If so, could you just give us a thumbs up? Okay, we can't hear you yet.
He's not muted.
No. We still can't hear you, Director Lundy. It says unverified.
it's fine.
It normally says that.
But there's a microphone icon coming up.
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
You're not muted.
He's not muted.
Just your
It's something-
microphone's
he's having
not
a
transmitting.
No, can you turn it up louder maybe? Is your volume an issue? No.
No, we can't see his, what you call it.
You guys can't hear me?
Oh, yeah, it's transcribing.
Yeah.
It's transcribing your
Okay, it's not coming through audio. though?
words, but we can't hear you. So I would say maybe it's the volume.
Okay,
Turn it
are
all the way
you,
up.
are you guys able to hear me?
I don't know, maybe hang up and call back in. Is that
Sure
possible?
thing.
Director
Let
Lundy?
me try that.
All right. So we'll wait for Chief Lundy to call back in, and for now, we're gonna go to the protester.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. DeShield.
Wonderful, man. I see, you're always a pleasure.
Individual businesses to make sure their NICS codes are right.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. President, other members of the board. My name is Robert DeShield. I represent Smart Cities. I would ask the representative of Smart Cities and Versatech to come up. They're kind of bashful here. I'd like them to come up, just in case there's some technical questions that I'm unable to address. They will identify themselves if an opportunity presents or need presents for them to speak. I want to start, if I may, with the number one issue, quite frankly, which is the city's determination that there are no minority firms certified with the city that have any capability of providing any goods or services that are required for the performance of the work under this contract. The fact is that's simply not true. Along with Versatech, there are over 200 firms that my client believes could provide services, and Versatech as a partner has operated as a partner with Smart City on several other contracts. But let me digress for just a moment, and because in the 40 years or so that I've been doing this, it's a very rare circumstance that a bidder has complained because of the lack of a requirement for minority participation. In fact, I can only think of one occasion in my history where that's occurred under a prior administration. And the reason for that is this. Regrettably, today we know we still need the MBE program to get minority participation. We know that because you have disparity studies conducted periodically, and those disparity studies continue to demonstrate that there is a lack of minority participation. The program that the city enacted it should be interpreted, should be enforced to favor the inclusion of a requirement participation for that reason. Now, we have on the other side the opportunity for a bidder who doesn't think that there is participation to request a waiver. You can request, if you make a good faith effort to find minority participation and can't find it, then you simply request a waiver. But if you're going to commit an error, you always commit it on the side of establishing the requirement for it, because we know that absent that requirement, there won't be any. And it is antithetical, in fact, for the city to find itself in a position where it says that there are no minority firms capable, when in fact at least one of the bidders has said that they have a partner that's been used in partnership over a period of time, and that upon its review, Smart City also conducted an investigation, an examination of the city's minority business database, the directory, and found that there were over 200 firms that could provide some level of service. Now, the law doesn't require that the percentage reach a certain amount. It doesn't require that you have minority participation that's 10% of the contract value or 15%. The law simply says that on any contract at over 50, where the amount is supposed to be over $50,000, that you put the requirement in at whatever level you think is reasonable. And then you let the marketplace decide. That's the best place. These are the people who actually do the work, not bureaucrats sitting in the office going turning pages. I'm not speaking disparagingly about
no, we
Mr.
know
Mann,
you're
of
not.
course.
Yeah, we understand.
But the decision is left to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And the marketplace here says that that Mr. Mann was just simply wrong. That the marketplace here says that there indeed are minority firms that are capable of performing some service, providing some goods in connection with this contract. And so we ask not for the benefit of necessarily even this contract, but for the benefit of the program. You're sending a message. You're sending a message to the minority business community. You're sending a message that even when in the rare circumstance, and I would say the unusual circumstance, where a bidder says that I can provide minority participation, we don't want it because we find that you don't exist. We find that you're simply not there. When we make that determination, it's simply wrong. It's the wrong message to send. Now, on the other issues, I asked for a copy for evidence that the bid bond was submitted along with the bid. I got an email saying it was. I've never seen it. A copy wasn't given to me, and the record doesn't reflect that. The official record that I have access to doesn't show that the correction was ever made. I don't know whether the bid bond was in the package or not. All we know is on bid day, the announcement was made that the bid bond was absent. Mr. Mann, on the issue of Cox responsibility, he says that the answer is, well, it's a different company. But they all share the same address on Peachtree Street in Atlanta. They're all interrelated. No one can stand here and say there's no relationship between Cox Communication and Cox Hospitality. They're all one happy family. And what we show here is not simply the possibility of disclosure, which Mr. Mann didn't really talk about. He didn't tell you whether those elements were disclosed. I assume from what he said that they weren't. But let's talk about what the $13 million fine for consumer fraud. That goes to integrity. That has nothing to do with financial responsibility. We're not saying that they don't have the means, resources. We're talking about the integrity of the company. And I don't think anybody can stand here and say that the relationship between them is so disconnected, is so separate and apart that that what one has done and been found guilty of shouldn't bear some relevance upon the bidder that submitted a proposal here. The same thing with respect to the conditional offer. Mr. Mann says that they offered to negotiate, but he didn't comply with what the bid required. The bid document required that you submit an audited statement, not that you say, I'm going to negotiate with you over whether or not I should submit it. They never submitted it. They never submitted. You can't negotiate away a bid requirement. The bid requirement determines whether or not you're responsible on its face. So when they didn't submit, and I assume that they didn't because he didn't say they did, when they didn't submit the audited financial statement, the bid was non-responsive on its face. You don't get to negotiate it away later on. You don't get, when they put in the provision that says we want to delete the requirement for termination by convenience. You know what termination by convenience requires then, in order for the city to terminate the contract, you've got to prove a breach. You've got to prove that they're at fault. With the termination for convenience, you can simply say, we don't want the contract to continue for good reason, not for any reason, but for good reason. But the standard, the bar for determining a breach is much more difficult, much higher than it is for a T for C, termination for convenience. So you can't negotiate away bid requirements. You can negotiate your response if you've demonstrated compliance, but you can't negotiate away the compliance in the bid itself, and that it wasn't there. So for all of those reasons, Mr. President, members of the board, and for the message, primarily for the message that you're going to send to the minority business community, we urge you to reject this recommendation and have this contract re-advertised. Thank you.
Well, quick question, and maybe one of the owners of either company, from a NICS code perspective, I know I talked to and tried to get the administration to talk about NICS codes. I guess what Mr. CPO said is that there are multiple NICS codes. I mean, is that 6, is that 12, is that 100 related to telecoms management? Would you know the specifics around that?
First, Marty Rubin, CEO of Smart City. Thank you, Mr. President and board members. There's probably at least 5 or 6.
There's 5 or 6 NICS codes.
Yeah, and
And what are like the variations between them? Would you know that?
Well, some do computer management, some are cabling. So by way of an example, we provide the service at the Walter Washington Convention Center, where we have a minority business partner that also owns a part of our business there as well that meets the same NICS codes are required here. So for 20 years, we've been doing exactly what you want to have done here, but using a minority partner.
Just for
So
the public's
history.
edification, could there be multiple NICS codes on a single bid? Could you have multiple NICS codes?
Yes, because it's
I
possible.
just want to
that
make
you
sure we
could-
put it on the record. They could,
Yeah.
so for the NICS codes of, say, like cabling, which one, my
Right.
assumption is cabling would be a part of this job, or no?
Yes. Yes,
There
cabling
would
is
be.
part of the job. Installing routers, managing routers, computer maintenance. There are quite a few different, RP and NICS codes.
Now, this particular NICS code that was selected, what did that specifically, do you know the specific nature of that?
I do not know the specific nature of the one that we selected.
The one that was ultimately selected that was determined that there were no minority businesses.
I'm not sure what it was.
Closer than Atlanta to do this work.
I do not, I only know what the codes we use to find a minority partner at this point. We went out and found a partner. Wasn't that difficult for us going through the databases?
So explain that to me, because I don't understand. So the bid came out with a NICS code, right? Is that how this works? No. You want to explain this to me, Adam? Yeah.
The NICS codes are what the BTG system uses. They're the category codes that we use in Workday.
Yeah.
Or the NIGP codes. Everything has a code that goes along with it so that it helps you determine and classify your different business partners and the services they provide.
Who selects the NICS code that goes along a bid?
With this
Yeah.
is the city. So what happens is, and I can show this to you, is the Bureau of Procurement working with the Convention Center. This is a telecommunications management contract to find a small minority business that can do telecommunications. We go into the B2G system, and we put in telecommunications in a search function. That search function comes back with 4, sir, and I sent this to your office last evening, and I can show it to you, that there are 4 certified business partners by SMB&D to do telecommunications with the city. None of them are certified to do telecommunications management. They did not choose that. They did not demonstrate it. And while I appreciate Mr. DeShields and the passion that we want to give business to our small minority businesses, this board and the city council has gone above and beyond to show their demonstration to our small minority business partners as we go through this with the Office of SMB&D and that everything we do and how we do it. In this case, as a revenue contract with an RFP, based upon the information, and I appreciate that there are hundreds, if not thousands, small minority businesses within the city. Based upon the rules set by this board and the city council, those businesses must be certified so we know who we're dealing with. Are they a legitimate business? Are they a responsible business owner? Is this their primary business that they're doing? For an example, sir, is if I want to build a new fire station and you come up and say, I own a lawn maintenance service, but my boys know what they're doing, we're not going to hire you to build a fire station. We want people who are general contractors who know how to do it. The same with this. This is a revenue-generating contract. It puts the convention center, if it's done poorly or wrong, at a disadvantage. And it costs the city revenue as we move forward with it. And I can show you, sir, like I said, not to go too deep, there are 4 companies that are here that are registered under telecommunications, none with telecommunications management. We put in telecommunications, this is what came out. We asked SMB&D to review. They did their review, they did the work that they're doing, and they came back and said, yes, a waiver is granted for this, and it's the right thing to do to move forward, and that's the city's position as we move with it. And if you'd like, I can...
No. Thank you, Mr. CPO. Yes?
So what I'd like to add, first of all, we've been doing this for 30 years. We're probably 40 of the largest convention centers in the United States. We have a model of working with small minority businesses in the city, so whether it be San Antonio or Washington, D.C. If you talk, we're the ones responsible. We handle thousands of trade shows in the United States and some of the largest, so we're the ones responsible. We've never said that we're going to take the minority partner and make them responsible. They work underneath our umbrella of making sure things happen. They handle the cable management, and then along the way, not only do they have an equity stake in our business, because we give them an equity stake, but they also learn and they hire staff and they advance themselves. So our partner in Washington, D.C. has been a partner for 20 years and has grown the business, but they don't run it, they don't manage it. They work with the codes, the subcodes, which are cable management, installing the computer systems. We never said that there's a minority partner who can handle it all. There's only 2 or 3 companies in the United States can do it. What we are saying is that you can easily subcontract a significant amount of the work to minority companies in the city of Baltimore and in the county. That's what we're saying. And we demonstrate that because we have a partner. We went through the database. We found over 200 companies we would have interviewed. We selected one. We could select more. We
What
demonstrated
database? What database?
the city's database.
So when you went in and found 200 companies, you put in telecom, or what did you put in to find those 200 companies?
Cable management, all the things that we
So
find
you said the
acceptable to
specific
us.
task that you know is acceptable
Yes,
to
we know
you.
the task because we've been doing this for 30 years. I mean, you've gone down to the Walter Washington Convention Center.
And you
we
know
have the
that you know
contractor.
from an unbundling perspective, that's typically something that minority or women or local-owned company might have the competency to kind of do.
And how?
Yeah.
Yeah, without
Based off your
question.
experience.
Whether it be San Antonio, City of Houston, we do it nationwide, so we know that they exist, and we know that they don't have the breadth and the systems to do the total management. Why shut them out? They could do a portion of it, and we give them an equity stake in the business.
Understood. Anything else
Yes,
from you,
We have the
Attorney
owner
Schill?
of Versatech, just to tell him, just to give you some inkling of what his company is capable of doing.
if you could talk about your competencies and things that you've done in the past from a telecom perspective?
Identify yourself.
Sure, I'm Jason P. I'm the president and CEO of Versatech. My organization was hired and we maintained the entire hospital at Fort Belvoir Community Hospital, which would include telecommunications. Oftentimes, these services could be underneath other NAICS codes, like IT NAICS codes, because depending on what you're doing, telecommunication can sometimes think about voice phone systems. That's what I would think of personally. I don't think about routers, networks, and Wi-Fi. That's more of an IT thing, but that's just me being a contractor who's been serving the federal government and the state for 20 years now. But we also have extensive experience doing audiovisual services. So if you've ever been to the White Oak campus at the FDA, we maintain all the conference rooms, the conference center, and all the things that get done there. So we definitely have the expertise and experience to do the work that is being outlined here. We are a minority business-owned firm, and I also am a Equal Business Officer Commissioner for Howard County. I actually oversee and look at these waivers for procurements in the county.
Mr. Chief of Staff?
Just a quick question. Are you registered with the city?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And can we try to bring back up Director Lundy when he
Yes.
gets a chance, please? Thank you.
Mr. Comptroller?
Well, following up on the question of if you're registered with the city, which NICS codes are you registered with?
Well, we are in our primary NAICS code, which is IT. So it's probably 541, 511. I do not know off the top of my head, but we're IT NAICS code.
And it just is IT, what, is that IT general? I mean, what does that code say it means?
Well, there's computer programming. We do software development. We do IT infrastructure.
No, not what you do. I'm saying, are you, because my understanding, and this is what I'm trying to get a handle on, is that you can have multiple NICS codes listed for your business. Is that?
That's accurate.
Right, okay. So is that the only NICS code you're listed under?
No, he has several NICS codes.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm, like, so do you have a list of what NICS codes you're registered under?
I would have to go pull those down for you.
Because I think this turns, and this is why I'm glad we're trying to get Chief Lundy, I think this turns on Sinbad looked up telecommunications management. And nobody had said that that was what their business does. So if your business does that, but you didn't put that on your form, that's not the city's fault. So that there's.
But the question is, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds of our
Chief
own
Lundy.
opinions, but the question is, why did we pick that one particular niche?
That's what I'm saying, without Chief
Yes.
Lundy,
Why was that selected and why weren't others selected? Or why did we go down the telecom pathway, not the IT pathway?
that is a great question
Council
for Chief
President,
Lundy.
do we want to just see really quickly if Chief
Yeah,
Lundy
I
was
think
able to rejoin?
Chief Lundy, are you able to speak on behalf of?
Yeah, are you guys able to hear me?
The discussion. There you go. I see your hand raised.
All right, good morning. How you doing? Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. So this conversation, we've gotten a little derailed from where we were, and there's some fundamental misunderstandings here that are taking place. So when procurements begin, the end user agency drafts their scope of work. Within their scope of work, there's particular services that are included, and they correspond to NACE codes. So these NACE codes are actually the North American, they're the North American Industry Classification Systems. These codes correspond per the Small Business Administration to the type of work that your business does. So when so per the Board of Estimates approval of the size standards for SMB A&D to rely upon, we use those codes to determine what is within the scope of work. So the agency sets the scope of work and or procurement, and they say what's included in that particular contract. As when we receive it and we go through and do our review before it goes out to set the goals, what we're looking at is actually what services are included within that scope. They correspond to the NACE codes, and then we do a search of our active certified directory of MWBEs for who's available to provide those goods and services. So at SMB A&D, we don't make any determination of what NACE codes are included in a particular project. We're looking at the scope as it exists, and then we're just simply seeing that availability that exists. So on this one, it was moving forward with that scope of telecommunications. When we speak of Versatech, Versatech is certified for a sole NACE code 541511, which is custom computer programming services. I implore all of our certified businesses, minority or women-owned, to review your listing in our certification directory at BaltimoreCityDirectoryCompliance.com and make sure you're certified for the services that you can provide, and we can assist you with that. The challenge we have is that businesses engage in work, but they're not certified for all of the work they're capable of doing, and thus they're not captured in that availability, and they're not eligible to provide those particular services under the contract and have it count towards the goals. Any minority and women-owned business, whether they're certified for those particular codes or not, can always contribute to our contracts. We encourage them to work on our contracts, but we're strictly talking about for that goal adherence and that utilization. We're only looking at what folks are actually certified in. So thus, we may have some businesses that are capable of working on this contract. We may have minority and women-owned businesses that can provide valuable services under the contract, but they were not captured in the availability to actually set goals for this contract.
Your presentation has been excellent. Thank you so much, Chief Lundy. One quick question that I think is the crux of it, and I think you kind of explained it, but can you just explain to the board once again? So who ultimately assigns, and thank you for giving us the correct name, NACE code, who ultimately assigns that NACE code?
It's coming from the scope of work. So from the agencies and or in collaboration with procurement, we receive that.
So this scope of work talks about the management, the operation, and the maintaining of this system. Who ultimately decides that this NACE code goes to that scope of work?
It would be contract administration at the agency and or a procurement buyer that submits the actual goal sheet request to SMB.
Who did it in this case?
I do not have that information handy. I'd have to research who actually did the submission to us initially.
I mean, from all that I've read and all that I'm hearing,
I would imagine it would be the procurement buyer assigned to this. Adam may be able to provide clarity on who specifically would have been the buyer.
Who assigned this NACE code?
Our senior contracting officer, Abraham Bay.
Yeah.
Is he put it through. I have a copy of it here where it was, where we were doing this, that this was telecommunications management contracting. That's what he used in the search directory. I can show this to you.
And I guess the question then begs is why didn't this go down the IT pathway? This seems more, I mean, if you ask the average person to talk about cabling of routers and dealing with a Wi-Fi network, I would assume the average person would look at that as an IT pathway as opposed to a
Because
telecom
it's
pathway.
more than just that. I let the director speak to it. It's not just putting in routers and cabling. It's charging and billing. It's providing services to the
That's-
patrons.
To me, that's more IT than telecom.
Which I'm not, it's one or the other, sir. Yes, I understand what you're saying.
And I'm just saying, I know that nothing nefarious was, I'm not trying to suggest anything nefarious was done or that there's any concern, but a lot of times it's been the utilization of these codes and identifying what groups of businesses don't necessarily go through certain certifications or haven't had certain access to provide some level of past performance to be certified in those, and we choose a NAICS code, not just the city of Baltimore. This is well known throughout kind of this minority participation type of window where you don't have any minority women or local companies to kind of participate in that NAICS code. So that's what I'm just really trying to drill down into. When I read the scope of work, I really read it from an IT perspective, and I'm just wondering why we chose this very unique telecom code that, you know, not many folks really qualify for.
As we work with our subject matter experts in the departments with BC&C, as we move forward with any city department, procurement works with the subject matter experts to develop the scope of work, what's going on. This was issued specifically as manage, operate, and maintain telecommunication systems.
But it's really an IT network.
In one,
I understand.
in one view, sir, please.
Got
I
it.
understand, and you're a very important view, don't get me wrong.
Understood.
But that's one view. Based upon the subject matter experts who we have here who can discuss, the procurement people who worked with it, the determination was based upon the scope of work, and none of us, we're not IT people, is that this is telecommunications. We went through the processes as dictated by the city guidelines with our partners at SMBAD, and we went through the process to do this. Now, if you're asking specifically why telecommunications over IT, I would hand it over to the director. He might be able to give you a better, deeper dive on that as you would. But yes.
I don't know if it's fair to the director, but do you want to kind of educate us on the difference between telecom and IT?
I mean, excuse me. Good morning. Matt Campbell, Executive Director of the Convention Center. I would, nice to meet you. I would just say the difference in this perspective is that we actually have copper phone lines. We still provide infrastructure that is beyond ones and zeros because of the age of our building. That is how this agreement has always been worded. And while copper lines obviously have a smaller percentage of this business now than it did, say, 10, 15 years ago, we still have folks that need to know how to tie through hard lines throughout the building.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why telecom was used versus.
Understood. And I would just say in the importance of inclusiveness and the importance of ensuring that we don't wind up having 25-minute discussions at the BOE about things that, to me, are pretty straightforward. You know, when we go after and we just choose one NAICS code, right, when there's others out there that we know can provide a catchment, and then we go down the pathway of just unilaterally providing a waiver for IT services. And I appreciate, Mr. CPO, what you've kind of brought to the board in talking about the importance of really expanding minority participation. I think this mayor has been very innovative in unbundling DPW contracts because of things like this, knowing that these very large jobs outside of the bonding capacity issue, but from a competency perspective, because folks have not had the ability to mature their companies in a way to do certain activities, but in bundling, it provides real opportunity. And I think that this is one that is very clear that inside of this particular bid, there's a tremendous amount of work that we don't need this company from Atlanta to come to Baltimore to do on a regular basis, that we have not just minority, not just women, but also local companies that have the capacity and the competency to do that work. And it's concerning, again, that we go down and just select this one NACE code, which is a very unique code in itself, not just for minority or women-owned businesses, but even for local businesses, I would argue. We just have to figure out, when we're trying to do a million things at once, how to ensure that we stop doing this. And I say that specifically when we talk about IT, because when we look at the city of Baltimore, historically, it has been our IT contracts that always get the waivers without us doing the hard work. And I think I've addressed the administration. I think I've addressed this on past IT contracts, that we have to do a better job of taking a step back, doing a market research analysis, understanding and knowing what the core competencies out there about businesses in a hotbed for minority businesses that do IT work, because we are around all of the IT work for the country. That's why we have so many minority businesses and IT businesses in these two beltways of Baltimore and Washington, D.C. So I guess that's where kind of my concern goes and continues to harp on. With that, Mr. DeShiel or Versatech or Smart Cities, do you have anything else that you would like to add for the board? And then we're going to turn it back over to the administration if there's any additional rebuttal that you would like to add.
Mr. President, you put your finger on the real reason why there was no minority participation on this contract, because there never has been in the past.
That's how all these IT. I'm sorry. I should take my pick. Go ahead. Talk.
There has never been a requirement for minority participation on this type of contract, and so when this was put together, there was no thought of it. We're going to do it. We're going to do business the way we've always done business. The idea of considering minority participation was an afterthought. What was given to Chris Lundy was the parameters that were established by the agency. So he answered the question that was asked him. Right? But the subject matter expert isn't Chris Lundy. The subject matter expert isn't Abraham Bay. The subject matter expert is the industry. If we're going to commit an error here, you commit it on the side of inclusion, not exclusion, because if the truth is that there's no minority participation available, it will show up in the form of a request for a waiver by the bidder. That's what it's there for. That's the avenue that's legally required. If you can't find any, if you've exercised good faith, then you simply say that and you're excused from that requirement. But you don't cut it off. You don't cut it off at the top, because we know from experience that if you don't include a requirement, there isn't ever going to be any. And that's what's happened here. I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. CPO?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your comments. And again, I'd like to reiterate that my office and Director Lundy's office and the mayor's office are 100% behind including as many people as possible as we're doing this. I will point out that during this process, there were multiple opportunities for any bidder or anybody respondent to bring this matter up, and it was not done. So reality-wise is both Smart Cities and their business partner, between the two of them, had 8 opportunities to bring this matter up, and it never came up until after we decided to go to award at the end of it. I understand, sir, that you would like us to expand when we're looking at these things. We don't look at NAICS codes by the code specifically, as we put the general term into search and see what comes up. Here it was telecommunications. We viewed it as telecommunications. I know you view it as differently. It is something we can look at. He is correct. Abraham Bay is not a subject matter expert on this. I am not a subject matter expert on it, but we've relied on our subject matter experts at the Baltimore Convention Center and others, and in SMBAD, to help us to go forward. What I am a subject matter expert in is in procurement, and the procurement was done correctly. We did what we needed to do. We followed all of the processes and the procedures and the rules and requirements as set forth by this board. We gave everybody a fair shot. Nothing was brought up until after the award was going to be made. We've already extended the current contractor so that we could go forward with this. And the administration, we are asking you to deny the protest, award the contract, so that the city can go on and we can show that the convention center is a business partner out there and bring more people into Baltimore.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Chief Lundy, anything in addition to add?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to make clear that Mr. DeShields is overlooking the fact that we do have the availability to grant waivers pre-bid from bidders themselves that are saying they're unable to meet the MWBE requirements, and also the agency or Bureau of Procurement when there is not availability, or as a matter of law, if it's a sole source procurement. So that is not the only time that we're in a position to grant waivers. I will say, as I've indicated in the past, we are working diligently with the agencies to give them additional training on unbundling. That is something that admittedly is new to the city, but I do take offense in any representation that we're doing things the same way we always have. When we have not had this level of review, we have not had this level of training with the agencies. We have not had this level of collaboration and partnership. So this definitely is not what we've always done. We're continuing to work to try to make sure we maximize participation where possible, but act in accordance with the city code and the law. And in doing so, we will not put goals on any contract when there is not actual availability to do so, because that's simply setting the prime contractor up for failure. If there's not available MWBEs to do that work, then they inherently will have difficulty meeting that goal and come to us later with a waiver. So we do not try to set goals that are an impossibility that folks cannot meet within that scope. And as always, once folks are awarded contracts or goals, it's within their determination to determine whether they utilize their subcontractors for that pure work within the scope or for other ancillary services on the project. But we are firmly in support of minority and women-owned businesses and continuing to look at these contracts and work with the agencies to maximize all of our participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Lundy. Just want to ensure that we're all on the same page. I'm not sure I've heard anyone on this board or any testimony from the city or from the vendors in protests to suggest that someone is asking the city to put minority participation goals on bids as a performative action. I think what has been asked and what we have continually talked about is that what we feel in this particular bid, that there are opportunities from a competency of proven past performance of minority and local businesses to do some of this work. I think what we've also stated is how the city has moved definitely in the right direction from progress. I would not be the chair of the Board of Estimates and not continue to scream up and down and jump up and down without seeing the progress. And I know our mayor, Brandon M. Scott, sees it as a core competency of his administration and what he's done to date for us to have progress. I think the concern and the question is, when we see progress, is particularly in certain segments of vendor and of bidding. And when we talk about IT, that has historically been one that has been completely undervalued from a minority, local, women-owned business perspective that this board has spoken about with specific contracts. If we could recall, the beginning of all of this started with the Motorola contract 4 years ago. That we aggressively gone after, and we constantly talk to the administration about ensuring that we have ways of having minority and local-owned businesses kind of participate in that. So I guess that is the crux of this matter here. I think that when we look back at this, is there a way that we could have gone about it a little differently? Is there a way that we rely on subject matter experts to help ensure that scope of work meets exactly what the requirements are of the job and the appropriate NACE codes are assigned to them? That is what I'm getting out of this discussion. That is my concern with this discussion. And again, no one is asking the administration to arbitrarily put performative minority, local, small business-owned goals on contracts where we do not have the capability of local businesses to perform them. Chief Lundy?
Understood. I just wanted to be clear when we talk about our tech contracts specifically. I want to thank my great partner in BSIT in the work that they've done over the past few years to improve those numbers. When we look at FY22, they had a total of $550,574 for MWBE participation, and I'm happy to say in FY23, they had $3,130,231. So we have worked in partnership to improve their numbers greatly from that tech side. And some of the things you're speaking of are things that we're working in partnership with Adam and procurement to continue the procurement transformation to make sure that we do approach this in a different way in terms of the agency scoping their contracts, so that we do have more accurate and even more robust things to consider when we're setting goals from our end.
At this time, are there any additional questions or concerns for members of this board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Nay, if you could please ensure that we have 4 in the affirmative and 1 nay, Madam Clerk. This item is approved. Thank you, Mr. CPO, and thank you to our vendors for coming in today. And thank you for our Chief of Staff who's sitting in and participating with us today.
This has been a riveting experience, Mr. President. Thank you so much. I'm going back to my cave.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Listen to my Juanita Bonham and Bishop T.D. Jakes while I work.
The only thing I will continue to just double down on, I think that this is a huge opportunity for us to continue the improvement that we've seen in our city. IT is definitely a problem and of a concern. Obviously, it does have some subject matter expertise kind of play into it, so maybe that is some of the breakdown and why we have not seen the progress that we should have or that we would like to have. But I ask the administration, particularly in the next term, to continue to work at it and be supportive of moving this ball in the right direction. With that, the next item on non-routine agenda is a walk-on item. It's SB 2414147. It's Fire Relocation Assistance Grant Agreement. This request is to approve a special program to assist the residents displaced by the recent fire on Charles Street. On behalf of the administration, we have...
Good morning, Dr. Brooks. Good morning, Dr. Brooks, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Comptroller, and board members. This grant agreement is to support residents that are impacted by the Charles Street fire residing at the Brown Arcade building. It will support with security deposit and 3 months forward rent. The payments are made directly to the landlord, and we've assigned 2 case managers from our CAP Center to support the impacted residents.
Thank you for all your work. At this time, are there any questions or concerns for members of this board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Dr. Brooks, we truly appreciate you coming in today. And I believe this will conclude. There's no additional new business before the desk of this board. I will adjourn. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, October the 30th at 9 a.m. Baltimore, thank you for tuning in. And we absolutely...
November.
No, November 6th.
What did I say, October 30th? I'm sorry, November the 6th. Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. So the next Board of Estimates meeting will occur on November the 6th at 9 a.m. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Baltimore, we absolutely love you.
Hey, TV25, we appear to now be ready to go. Thanks everyone for being patient with us. We had a little technical snag up here on the dais. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Board of Estimates bid opening for October 16th, 2024, and thanks for being patient. We're getting started just a little bit late due to technical challenges today. We have a few addenda to share. For the Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 000579, Electrical Services, 600 volts and under, will now be opened on November 6th, 2024. I don't know why the specificity of that makes me laugh all the time. Also for the Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 000632, Integrated Pest Control. This is a rebid. This will be opened on November 6th, 2024. For the Department of Public Works, SC 985, rehabilitation of the high-level interceptor. Casey, I'm checking in with you. Ashburton Washwater Lake is part of that title, correct? It seems to wrap around. I just want to make sure I'm announcing it correctly. Or is this part of the dredging thing? See what I'm saying? That's part of the dredging things, right? Okay. Sorry, folks, let me read that again so we're really clear. Just didn't want to add extra words that don't belong there. Department of Public Works, SC 985, rehabilitation of the high-level interceptor. That bid will now be opened on November 6th, 2024. Also for Public Works, WC 1354R, Ashburton Washwater Lake dredging will now also be opened on November 6th, 2024. And finally, also for DPW, WC 1449, repaving utility cuts and sidewalk restoration at various locations. This will also be opened on November 6th, 2024. For folks who need to see those details or want to take a second look at them, they will get posted with our bid results later today. We always post our results by close of business and sometimes much, much sooner than that. So please check the comptroller's web pages for the posting from today's opening. Today we have quite a few bids to open. It looks like 8, and we are going to work our way through these meticulously. The first up is for procurement RFQ 000554. And Abby, I think this one's for peer support mobile application. And this is a Part B, meaning we're opening the pricing today. The qualifications were opened at an earlier date. 554?
Yep, that's correct.
And I think we have 2 Part Bs that we're opening, correct?
That is correct. All right. All right. Up first is OCV LLC. And that price is 89,550.00.
That was OCV LLC?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and that price was $89,550.00.
That is correct.
Okay. I am just waiting patiently for the next number that Abby's going to tell me.
Up next is First Response Mental Health, Inc., and that total is 201,240.00.
Okay, that number was 201,240.00?
That is correct.
Okay, and that bidder was First Response Mental Health for $201,240.00.
Up next, we have Lexipol, and that total is 297,000.00.
And you said that was 297?
Correct.
Sorry, let me make sure I got that right. That was 297,000.00. And that bidder was Lexipol for $297,000.00. And that was our final of 3 bidders for RFQ 000554, Peer Support Mobile Application. And in case you wonder why I always say all the zeros, it's because it seems to confuse people if I don't. So, up next, we have for the Bureau of Procurement RFQ 000586, Eating Together in Baltimore.
Okay. That total is one.
Who is this for, Abby?
Oh. CSG, Culinary Services Group.
Got it. Thank you.
And that total is 1,513,445.07.
Okay, that number was 1,513,445.07.
That is correct.
That bid was for Culinary Services Group LLC for $1,513,445.07.
Correct.
$1,513,445.07. Up next.
All right. Up next, we have Meals on Wheels of Central Maryland, Inc. And that total is 2,002,400.00.
Okay, that number was 2,002,400.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was Meals on Wheels in Baltimore for $2,002,400.00.
All right. Up next, we have Dutch Mill Catering. And we will have to defer this.
Sorry, no, that was wrong. That's right. You can read that.
Oh, okay. All right. And the total is 2,042,694.00.
Okay, that number was 2,042,694.00.
That is correct.
Okay, that bidder was Dutch Mill Catering for $2,042,694.00.
Up next, we have Food for Maryland / Sardis Catering. And we will have to defer to the agency for this. There is no total listed.
Okay. That was Food for Maryland, Sardis Catering. Okay. And we're unable to identify a clear total for this bid, so we're going to defer to the agency to review the entire bid package in more detail. And was that our final? So that was our final of 4 bidders for RFQ 000586, Eating Together in Baltimore. Up next, we have RFQ 000590 for the Bureau of Procurement, and this is for bookbinding services.
We have no bid submitted.
And there are no bids received for RFQ 590, bookbinding services. Up next for Bureau of Procurement, we have RFQ 000598, HVAC maintenance, repair, and installation.
Up first, we have Agape Enterprise. And that total, let me just double check here because I see one right there.
There's a total bid price.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. And that total is 4,431,982.95.
Okay, that number was 4,431,982.95.
That is correct.
Okay, that bidder was Agape Enterprise for $4,431,982.95.
Up next, we have JCM Control Systems, Inc. not seeing a total. Yeah, no, they don't split up. Mm-mm. No. Should be right before this. Yeah, it's almost there. Yeah, no, it's all.
Nope,
All
there is.
right. Okay. And that total is 6,617,500.00.
Okay, that number was 6,617,500.00.
That is correct.
And that was for JCM Control Systems, Inc., for $6,617,500.00.
Up next, we have J. Fisher, Inc. That total is 6,928,750.00.
Okay, that number was 6,928,750.00.
That is correct.
And that was for JF Fisher, $6,928,750.00.
Okay. Up next, we have NAC Mechanical Services, LLC. And that total is 8,582,500.00.
That number was 8,582,500.00.
That is correct.
And that was for NAC Mechanical Services for $8,582,500.00. Up next.
That was
I think
the last
that was our
one.
last of
Mhm.
four. Oops, sorry. You're right. I didn't complete the cycle. That was our last of four bidders for RFQ 598 HVAC maintenance, repair, and installation. Up next, we have for the Department of Public Works SC 982R with a little asterisk. I don't know what that means. Casey, does that mean something? Okay. So again, this was SC 982R for the Eastern Avenue Pumping Station rehabilitation.
We have one bidder. That is WM Schlosser Company, Inc. And that total is 66,922,000.00.
And do we have a bid bond?
Yes, we do.
And we don't have any checks with this one, right?
No.
Just making sure. That bidder was WM Schlosser Inc. For $66,922,000.00. That was 66,922,000.00. And that was the only bidder for SC 982R Eastern Avenue Pumping Station rehabilitation. Up next for the Department of Public Works, we have WC 1382, Montebello 1 Finished Water Reservoir Structural Rehab.
Yes. Up first, we have American Contracting and Environmental Services, Inc.
Okay.
And that total is 9,992,000.00.
Okay, that number was 9,992,000.00.
That is correct.
This is a bid bond?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And that bidder was American Contracting and Environmental Services, Inc. for $9,992,000.00. Is that the only one for that one?
Yes, that was the only bidder.
Oh, that was the only bidder for WC 1382 Montebello 1 finished water reservoir structural rehab. Okay, up next for the Department of Public Works, we have WC 1418 small water main replacement at Yale Heights.
Yep. Right. Up first, we have Anchor Construction Corporation.
Okay.
And that total is 502, 955.84.
Okay, that number was 502, 955.84.
That is correct.
That bidder was Anchor Construction Corporation for $11,502,955.84. And up next.
Up next, we have Civil Construction, LLC. And that total?
Oh, Abby, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you, were there a bid bond?
Yes, there was.
There was?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep.
There was a bid bond for Anchor Construction
Yep.
Corporation.
Mhm.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right. And the total is 10308.875.00.
And there is a bid bond.
There is a bid bond.
Okay, that bidder was Civil Construction LLC, and that number is 10308.875.00.
That is correct.
So again, that's Civil Construction LLC for $10,308,875.00.
Up next, we have Commercial Utilities. And that total is 9,137,856.07.
That number was 9,137,856.00.
That is correct. No, .07.
Oop, sorry. Let me fix that. Oops. Okay, let me read that back to you again. It's 9,137,856.07.
That is correct.
That was for commercial utilities for $9,137,856.07.
And there is a bid bond.
And there is a bid bond, thank you.
Up next, we have Monumental Paving and Excavating, Inc.
Oops.
And that total is 10,800,000.00.
Okay, that number was 10,800,000.00.
That is correct.
And there's a bid bond present?
Yes, there is.
So that bidder was Monumental Paving and Excavating, Inc. for $10,800,000.00.
And our final bidder is Spinello Companies. And that total is 14,143,300.00.
And there's a bid bond present?
Yes, there is.
That number was 14,143,300.00.
That is correct.
That bidder was Spinello Companies for $14,143,300.00. And was that our final?
Yes, it was.
That was our final of 5 bidders for WC 1418 small water main replacement at Yale Heights. And up next, for Department of Public Works, we have WC 1445 Lock Raven Drive over unnamed tributary, which may also be called the culvert number 11. It's not sure. I'm not sure what's going on here, but that's what we're calling it.
All right. Up first, we have Allied Contractors, Inc.
Okay.
And that total is 516,098.00.
Okay, that number is 516,098.00.
That is correct.
Are there bid bond?
Yes, there is. Mhm.
That bidder was Allied Contractors, Inc. for $516,098.00.
Up next, we have Monumental Paving and Excavating, Inc. And that total is 450,000.00.
Okay, that number was 450,000.00.
That is correct.
And there's a bid bond present?
Yes, there is.
That bidder was Monumental Paving and Excavating, Inc. for $450,000.00. Was that the last one for?
No,
Oh, one more.
we have one more. Yep. Our final bidder is Spinello Companies. And that total is 1,134,530.00.
Okay, that number was 1,134,530.00.
That is correct.
And we have a bid bond?
Yes, we do.
That bidder was Spinello Companies for $1,134,530.00. And that was our final of three bidders for WC 1445, Lock Raven Drive over unnamed tributary, culvert number 11. And I believe that was our final bid for today. So that was our final opening for today. Our next scheduled opening is November 2nd. Oh, no, sorry, wrong date. November 6th, 2024 will be our next Board of Estimates bid opening at 12 noon. Thanks for tuning in, and thank you, TV25.